Princess Imabong returned to Horon with a heavy heart, her pride now shattered by the weight of rejection and suffering. She locked herself in a chamber, refusing to eat or see anyone. The vibrant, confident princess she once was had withered away, leaving only a shadow of her former self. The palace grew silent, the once bustling courtyards subdued by the princess desperate. One evening, Eyo, an elderly wise man respected across Oron, paid her a visit. Eyo had always been a figure of guidance, offering wisdom to the royal family. He found Imabong lying on her neat bed, her once radiant ebony skin now pale and dull. Her frail form and hollow eyes broke his heart, but he maintained his calm demeanor. Imabong, Eyo began, his voice gentle but firm. I warned you many years ago about the fleeting nature of beauty. Do you remember? Imabong nodded weakly, tears solely down her cheeks. I was foolish, Eyo. I let my pride blind me. Now, I have lost everything. My beauty, my dignity, even the chance to be happy. Eyo sat beside her and took her hand in his withered ones. Do not give up, my child. What has passed cannot be undone, but the future remains unwritten. You still have a chance to redeem yourself. Imabong looked at him with a flicker of hope in her eye. What should I do, Eyo? Edem will not see me, and I fear he may never forgive me. Eyo smiled kindly. Edem has a good heart, but you must approach him with sincerity. No more pride, no more arrogance. Speak to him as one who understands the weight of her mistakes. Show him that you have changed. Imabong sobbed quietly. I am willing to do anything to make amends. I only pray he gives me the chance to prove myself. Eyo rose and straightened his robes. Then prepare yourself, princess. This journey will not be easy, but is the only path forward. Remember, humility is not a weakness, but a strength. The next day, Imabong summoned her remaining courage. With trembling hands, she wrote a heartfelt letter to Edem, asking for his forgiveness and requesting an audience with him. For the first time, she poured out her heart, acknowledging her faults and expressing her deep regrets. The letter was delivered to Obong, where Edem read it in silence. Would Edem find it in his heart to grant her request? Or would the wounds of the past prove too deep to heal? The weight of Imabong's future now rested on Edem's decision. When Edem received Imabong's letter, he paused for a moment, guessing what the content would be. Edem, please forgive me. I know I wronged you. I shouldn't have listened to my heart. I should have listened to my father. I should have married you. Sorry that I chose Emeka. But Edem had no time to think about that. He had something more urgent to attend to. He received a sad news that his uncle Peter in Uyo is seriously ill, and Edem was preparing to go to Uyo when he got that letter. So he dropped it on the table, hoping to read it when he comes back. Edem set out for Uyo. Edem got to Uyo late in the night, and he went straight to Ogu's place. On getting there, he saw people in the living room cry. Edem was shocked. What could be wrong? I got his message this morning that he was sick, but now people gathered here cry. I hope it's not what I'm thinking. Edem went into the living room and asked the chief, Obawon, "Sir, what is happening?" Chief Obawon placed his hand on Edem and said, "My son, your uncle is no more. He died few minutes ago." The next morning, Mama Obong handed a letter over to Edem, saying that his uncle dropped this letter a day before he died, and he instructed that the letter should be given to Edem. No one should open the letter. Edem's heart raised. What could be the content of this letter? Edem sat in stunned silence, the letter trembling in his hands as revelation unraveled his understanding of his life. He reread the lines carefully, the words striking him like thunderclaps. My dear nephew Edem, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. There is something you must know about your past, a truth long buried, one I have kept from you, not out of malice, but to protect you. Your mother, Mary, was not your aunt, but your biological mother. She died in a tragic car accident alongside Princess Imabong's mother. The accident, a collision between King's car and a public bus, claimed many lives. Only you survived, barely 2 years old at the time. King Hefyong, out of gratitude for your mother's unwavering friendship with his late wife, took you to the authorities and ensured you were placed in my care, as your mother had no immediate family. Your mother and Imabong's mother shared a bond that even time and distance could not break. Though death dealt a cruel with her, their love and sacrifices remain part of your legacy. Be proud of who you are and never let bitterness take root in your heart. With love, Peter. Edem's heart was a storm of emotions, shock, sorrow, and a pang of guilt. He never suspected that the woman he called mother was actually his aunt, raising him with love and care despite her own struggles. And Imabong's family, the truth connected them in ways he could never have imagined. Edem sat for hours, piecing together the fragments of his identity. The realization that his late mother had been a close friend of Imabong's mother stirred something deep within him. Could this bond, stretching across generations, explain his unshakable feelings for Imabong? The next day, Edem returned to Horon, still uncertain of how to process the revelation. He visited Mama Ekaete, now an elderly widow, to confront her gently about the truth. She confirmed every detail of Peter's letter, her voice quivering with emotion. I want to tell you, Edem, but I fear that it will open old wounds. You were happy, and I didn't want you to carry the burden of that loss. Edem embraced Mama Ekaete, tears streaming down his face. You've been more than a mother to me. I owe you everything. That night, Edem lay awake, torn between anger and understanding. The ties between his mother and Imabong's family were profound. Yet he wondered if he could forgive Imabong's actions after all she had put him through. Still, the thought of her suffering gnawed at him. The next morning, he made a decision. Edem would visit the palace to see the king, but not as a scorned suitor or a reluctant savior. He would go as someone seeking answer to questions that now consumed him. What will they say, and how would Imabong feel? Edem sat in the royal chamber, his heart pounding as he faced King Hefiong, the elderly king, still regal despite his age, studied him curiously. You don't seem to be happy, Edem. Something is definitely troubling your heart. What is it, my son? Tell me. Edem let out a deep sigh. Your Majesty, there is something I would like to ask you, and I want you to tell me the whole truth. Is it true that you lost your wife in a car accident many years ago, and that a woman named Mary also died in that accident? At the mention of Mary, the king's expression softened. He leaned back in his ornate chair, his gaze distant as though peering into the past. It was a tragedy I would never forget, the king began. My wife, Ime, insisted on driving that day. She was always independent, even when she didn't have to be. She left Imabong, still a baby at that time, with a maiden at home. We were heading to a charity event, and Mary was on her way to visit a family friend. A reckless truck driver lost control, crashing into both our car and the bus Mary was in. The king paused, his voice heavy with grief. Ime tried to avoid the collision, but it was too late. I lost her that day. My queen, my heart. And Mary, she was such a kind soul, a true friend to Ime. They grew up together like sisters, also looking out for each other. Edem's throat tightened. And the child from the accident, the one you took to the police station? King Hefiong looked at Edem, his eyes narrowing. Are you that little boy I took to the police station that day? You mean you are Mary's son? Edem nodded. I was 2 years old at that time. I survived, but my mother didn't. You took me to the police station that night and later found my mother's younger sister, who raised me. We came back to Horon years later, and I grew up with the person I came to know as my father, our fisherman, and my uncle who raised me in Ucho died yesterday. I only recently learned the truth from a letter my uncle left me before he passed. The king's jaw slackened in amazement. Mary's son? This is unbelievable. Mary was like family to me because of my wife. Amy often spoke of how much Mary meant to her. how she supported her when life was difficult. Never imagined that the boy I saved that night would one day stand before me as a grown man. As the king and Edem spoke, their voices carried through the palace halls. Unknown to them, Princess Imabong was in her chamber lying on her bed. Though too weak to move or speak, she overheard every word. Her mind raced as the pieces of the story came together. Edem, the man she had once dismissed and humiliated, was not only her savior, but also the child of her mother's dearest friend. A wave of shame washed over her as she thought of how she had treated him. Tears streamed down her gaunt face, but she lacked the strength to wipe them away. Back in the royal chamber, the King Heffiong reached out and placed a hand on Edem's shoulder. You have endured so much, Edem, and now you have come full circle. It is as though God Himself brought you back to this palace to us. Edem nodded solemnly, but his thoughts drifted to Imabong. He had not yet decided whether he could forgive her. But learning the truth about their shared history added a new layer of complexity to his feelings. I only wanted to understand the past, Your Majesty, Edem said. I never expected to find this connection. I'm still trying to process it all. The king smiled faintly. You are welcome here anytime, Edem. Your mother and my wife shared a bond that transcended time and tragedy. You are part of that legacy. As the conversation ended, Edem prepared to leave. But the weight of what he had learned lingered in his heart. Meanwhile, Imabong lay in her chamber, her thoughts consumed by regret and a growing determination to make amends, if only her body would allow it. Edem sat on the floor of his home, staring at the shattered bottle with disbelief. The precious herb, the one thing that could save Imabong's life, was now gone. His frustration boiled over, and in a fit of anger, he threw furniture aside, his room a mess of chaos and regret. His heart ached at the thought of Imabong's fragile state, and now he had failed her. Determined to set things right, Edem marched to the palace to tell the king the truth. The king listened with a grave expression, his hand resting heavily on his throne's arm. Before he could respond, a commotion broke out in the hallway. The princess has fainted, a maidservant cried, running into the room. Edem and the king hurried to Imabong's chamber, their hearts pounding. Inside, Imabong lay unconscious, her face pale, her breathing shallow. Maidservants found her desperately, and her body looked even frailer than before. Edem knelt beside her, panic gripping him. Slowly, Imabong's eyes fluttered open, and she looked at him with tears pooling in his eyes. Edem, she whispered, her voice weak. I heard about the herb. Please, forgive me. I know I have wronged you. But if you have any mercy left, please don't give up on me. Her words pierced Edem's heart. He felt the weight of her desperation, her vulnerability breaking through the pride she had once carried. With a deep breath, he nodded. I will go back to Ogbagi Akoko. I will find the herb again, I promise. The next day, Edem began his journey. This time he was better prepared, carrying a machete, provisions, and tools to help him survive the dangerous terrain of the forest. As he ventured deeper into Ogbagi Akoko's mystical forest, challenges arose at every turn. He was confronted by wild animals, the sound of their growls and howls echoing in the dense greenery. Thorny vines lashed at his legs, and he had to wade through muddy swamps, his strength tested with every step. On the third day, Edem reached the spot where Malam Shehu had discovered the herb. He scoured the area relentlessly, the ancient trees standing tall around him, their roots creating a maze-like pattern on the ground. At last, his persistence paid off. He spotted the glowing herb nestled beneath a large twisted tree. Edem carefully harvested the herb, placing it in a sealed container to protect it. But as he began his journey back, the forest seems to conspire against him. Heavy rains poured down without warning, turning the forest floor into a slippery mess. The path became nearly impassable, and Edem had to climb over fallen trees and maneuver around hidden pits. At one point, he nearly slipped into a ravine, but his grip on the herb never faltered. His determination burned brighter than the storm raging around him. By the time he emerged from the forest, his clothes were torn, his body bruised, and his spirit unbroken. The herb was safe, and he knew he had to hurry back to the palace. The journey had been harrowing, but Edem's resolve had only grown stronger. Imabong's faith now rested in his wounds again. Would this herb finally bring her the healing she desperately needed? Or had the time already run out? Edem had to rest in worry for 2 days due to tiredness. On the third day, he returned to Horon, exhausted but resolute. He entered the palace gates to the cheers of the palace guards and servants. News of his successful return had spread, and hope reignited among the people who had watched Princess Imabong's condition worsen with despair. He went straight to Imabong's chamber, where the king and the palace healers waited anxiously. Edem handed the herb to the healer, who quickly prepared it into a medicinal brew. The princess, still frail, took the remedy with trembling hands, her eyes meeting Edem's briefly. Though she was too weak to speak, the gratitude in her gaze was unmistakable. Days passed, and with each sunrise, Imabong's health visibly improved. Her strength returned, her appetite revived, and her once radiant beauty began to shine again. The palace was abuzz with joy, and the king personally thanked Edem for his unwavering courage and compassion. He requested a private meeting with Edem. He hesitated, but agreed. His heart guarded despite everything. The grand hall, now quiet and serene, Imabong walked in gracefully, her head bowed in humility. To Edem's surprise, she knelt before him, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Edem, I owe you my life. You showed me a kindness I never deserved, and you risked everything for me despite the way I treated you. I was blinded by pride, but your actions have opened my eyes. From the depths of my heart, thank you. Edem gently helped her to her feet. Imabong, what matters is that you are well. Let the past stay in the past. What's important is the person you choose to be from this moment on. The two shared a moment of understanding, the weight of their journey bringing them closer. Over time, their bond grew stronger, rooted in respect and a shared history that had tested their both. Months later, the palace was filled with joy once more, but this time for a different reason. The royal drums echoed across Oron as people gathered to celebrate the grand wedding of Princess Imabong and Edem. Imabong, dressed in stunning traditional attire, radiated both beauty and humility, while Edem, standing tall beside her, embodied the bravery and kindness that had won the hearts of everyone in the kingdom. As they exchanged vows, the king looked on with pride. He knew his kingdom would be in good hands. For Edem's unwavering character and Imabong's newfound humility promised a bright future for Oron. Their love story, forged through trials and redemption, became a tale of transformation, forgiveness, and the enduring power of love. And so, surrounded by the shares of their people, they began their journey as husband and wife, a union that symbolized the triumph of compassion over pride.